Chapter 232. Crazy Upgrade. With each essence enhancement pill, Lin Fei's true intention myriad transformation technique was able to refine in one day. One pill could improve the training progress of the true intention myriad transformation technique by 4%. So, in his cave dwelling, Lin Fei declined all visitors and started taking essence enhancement pills. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. In the blink of an eye, 14 days had passed. Lin Fei had already taken 14 essence enhancement pills, and the cultivation progress of his true intention myriad transformation technique had increased by 56%. Boon. The next moment, Lin Fei's true intention myriad transformation technique reached 100%. He felt a sense of immense joy as he had finally made a breakthrough. The true intention myriad transformation technique had broken through to the middle stage, causing his saber essence to soar several times over. And all he had used up were 14 essence enhancement pills. Continue. Lin Fei didn't stop his cultivation. After all, he had only consumed a mere 14 essence enhancement pills. This time, he used his contribution points to buy a whole 200 essence enhancement pills. His goal was not just to reach the mid-stage of martial saint. Thus, Lin Fei continued to take an essence enhancement pill, still refining 1 pill per day. However, when he refined a pill, Lin Fei noted the effects of the essence enhancement pill. 1 pill could only improve the cultivation progress of the true intention myriad transformation technique by 2%. The effect was halved. Lin Fei estimated that this was related to his increased cultivation level and the fact that the more pills he took, the less effective they would become. 2% cultivation progress seemed small, but in reality, it was quite a lot. After all, if he didn't take any pills at this time and only relied on the true intention myriad transformation technique to work hard every day, even if he didn't stop, he wouldn't be able to improve his cultivation progress by 1%. This is due to the higher cultivation level requiring more saber essence, resulting in slow cultivation progress. However, if he took essence enhancement pills, he would only need 50 pills to make another breakthrough. Thus, Lin Fei closed his eyes again and continued to take the essence enhancement pills. 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days, 50 days. After 50 days, the true intention myriad transformation technique within Lin Fei's body shook violently. Following this, the saber essence in his body soared once more. Boom. A terrifying aura radiated from Lin Fei's body. This time, he didn't exert any saber momentum. The mere power of his own saber essence was terrifying to such an extent, it was unthinkable. This time, Lin Fei's true intention myriad transformation technique directly reached the late stage. His cultivation level also reached the late stage of martial saint. From the early stage of martial saint to the late stage of martial saint, from the previous 14 days to the current 50 days, Lin Fei only took 6 to 4 days, almost 2 months' time. The saber essence in Lin Fei's body had already soared to a terrifying extent. Originally, his saber essence was much deeper than the true essence of a martial saint at the same level. Now, Lin Fei even had a feeling that he could try to condense the chi flower. Of course, this was just an illusion. Like his physical body, although it was very strong, it was still far from reaching the limit of energy flower. At least, if he tried to condense the chi flower now, the probability of Lin Fei failing was very high. Once failed, it could even harm his foundation or lead to more severe consequences. He might never be able to condense the chi flower. Thus, the saber essence that Lin Fei possessed was indeed considerable. However, Lin Fei had not yet entertained the thought of condensing a chi flower. He had to ensure complete success, only then would he opt to condense the chi flower. In condensing the chi flower, if he were to guarantee absolute success, the best choice, of course, was to elevate the true intention myriad transformation technique to a state of perfection. Once the true intention myriad transformation technique reached perfection, the saber essence of Lin Fei would, without a doubt, surge to a terrifying extent. When the time came to attempt the condensation of the chi flower, success was bound to be within his grasp. Thus, Lin Fei's attention returned to the essence enhancement pills. There are still 136 essence enhancement pills. There are many, but I wonder if they would still have an effect after reaching the latter stages of martial state. Or is the effect greatly diminished? Lin Fei did not hesitate for long. One could only know by trying. Hence, Lin Fei ingested another essence enhancement pill. A day later, Lin Fei opened his eyes. He examined the progression of his practice of the True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique. This time, the True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique had only improved by 1%. Nevertheless, Lin Fei was delighted beyond measure. Not bad, even though the effects have halved once again. An effect of 1% is already quite good, even exceeding my expectations. At this rate, it would only require 100 days, roughly over 3 months, for the True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique to break through again, reaching perfection. Once perfection is achieved, I can attempt to condense the chi flower. A glint of determination flashed in Lin Fei's eyes. Such was the benefit of contribution points. As long as one had a sufficient number of contribution points, a substantial amount of resources could be exchanged. In certain aspects, when resources were abundant, it could truly save a lot of time and energy. Hence, Lin Fei hesitated no more. He continued to consume the essence enhancement pills. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Just this once, Lin Fei's seclusion had been longer than ever before. For more than 3 whole months, Lin Fei remained motionless within his cave. Even considering the additional 2 months prior, Lin Fei had almost been in practice for over 5 months. Boom. After Lin Fei had consumed another 100 essence enhancement pills, his True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique broke through once more. Progressing directly from the late stages of martial state to the state of martial state perfection. Moreover, his internal saber essence experienced a dramatic increase, surging several-fold in an instant. Swoosh! Lin Fei opened his eyes. System. Without a second thought, Lin Fei promptly called upon the system to examine the state of his martial prowess. Host, Lin Fei. Martial Arts Realm, Late-Stage Martial State. True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique, Perfection. Blood Essence 9 Transformations, 7th Transformation, Progress 12%. Holy Spirit Saber Technique, Mastery, Progress 58%. Flame Burning Heaven Saber, Transcendence, Progress 65%. Rainbow Transformation Saber Technique, Transcendence, Progress 10%. Saber Momentum, Transcendence, Progress 0%. Lin Fei's True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique had already reached perfection. Even the progress meter behind had vanished. This indicated an inability to further advance. Even consuming more elixirs would prove futile. However, Lin Fei noted, even though the True Intention Myriad Transformation Technique had reached perfection in terms of the realm, Lin Fei remained in the late stage of martial state. He had not yet reached the limit martial state. In truth, this was because Lin Fei had yet to condense a chi flower. Only upon condensing at least one of the 3 flowers could one be termed a limit martial state. Lin Fei had only achieved perfection in his technique, he had not yet condensed the chi flower. Only 36 essence enhancement pills remain. Seems their effectiveness is waning. Lin Fei murmured under his breath. There was no need to fear the essence enhancement pills were wasted, unused ones could be returned and exchanged back into contribution points. The ancient origin sect was quite considerate in this aspect. Of course, some intended to exploit this, procuring their own elixirs from outside, to return to Exchange Treasure Pavilion, acquiring contribution points. Once such a scheme was confirmed, one might even be expelled from the ancient origin sect. No one would risk the greater picture for such small exploits. Lin Fei was not overly concerned about the 36 essence enhancement pills. They could be returned at any time. What Lin Fei was more focused on was his cultivation. The true intention myriad transformation technique had reached perfection, and the saber essence had surged to an inconceivable extent. At this moment, Lin Fei was confident he could condense the chi flower. Upon a martial sate condensing a chi flower, they would be a limit martial sate. If one were a true disciple, they could instantly become a martial sovereign candidate, enjoying the best resources in the ancient origin sect. Their status would be of the highest disdain. Although Lin Fei was not a true disciple, once he had condensed the chi flower, his status and standing would undoubtedly be elevated. Let alone, the ancient origin sect always valued martial saints with potential. The more exceptional Lin Fei's performance, the more attention he would receive from the ancient origin sect. Considering Lin Fei's time in the ancient origin sect, in total, it might only be half a year. Condensing the chi flower so quickly, was it not too swift? This concern was completely needless for Lin Fei. In the ancient origin sect, some even stumbled upon fortunate encounters, emerging from martial saint and condensing a chi flower within just 10 days. Half a year for Lin Fei was indeed considered quite a length. Of course, that's the most exceptional geniuses throughout history. In the current ancient origin sect, being able to condense a chi flower within half a year indeed marked one as an unparalleled, top-notch genius. This was beyond doubt. To condense the chi flower, I need a tremendous amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi. Therefore, I must go to a specific place. Seems I need to make a trip to the spiritual chi pool. Lin Fei knew that there were some special places within the ancient origin sect. For instance, the spiritual chi pool. It was reserved for those martial saints preparing to condense a chi flower. Lin Fei did not hesitate in the least. He rose to his feet directly, transforming into a streak of light in an instant, soaring toward the spiritual chi pool. Chapter 233. Spiritual Chi Pool. The spiritual Chi Pool, as the name implies, is a pool made up of spiritual Chi. However, it's not merely spiritual Chi within this pool but spiritual essence. That is to say, spiritual Chi is continuously compressed, finally becoming a liquid, bound within the spiritual Chi Pool. This involves not merely a simple array, but also some treasures containing rich spiritual Chi. In short, this spiritual chi pool is precious to the ancient origin sect. It is one of the sect's important locations. The ancient origin sect expended considerable effort to construct this spiritual chi pool. The fundamental goal was to assist the martial saints within the sect to successfully condense the chi flower. When Lin Fei arrived outside the spiritual chi pool, there were not many people there. After all, the spiritual chi pool was for condensing the chi flower. How many martial saints within the whole ancient origin sector qualified to condense a chi flower? However, to maintain the consumption of the spiritual chi pool, it was also open to inner disciples and true disciples. The reason is simple. These inner disciples and true disciples, either innate or martial saints, have certain requirements for spiritual chi, and though not as great as those chi cultivators, there is still a demand. The wealthier ones could spend contribution points to cultivate within the spiritual chi pool. Cultivating here, the results would be twice as effective with half the effort. But it's expensive. One day requires 1,000 contribution points. Therefore, the martial artists who can come to the spiritual chi pool all seize every minute to cultivate. Swoosh! Lin Fei arrived outside the spiritual chi pool. Many disciples saw Lin Fei and also recognized him. After all, Lin Fei was not an unknown person in the ancient origin sect now. He was the one who defeated Ao Yunshao under everyone's watch. He was a prominent figure in the ancient origin sect. Moreover, Lin Fei was a Dao seeker. Therefore, when he arrived, all eyes were focused on him. Isn't that Elder Lin, the Dao seeker? Elder Lin has actually come to the spiritual chi pool. He's only in the early stage of martial state, having just arrived at the ancient origin sect about half a year ago. Does he already need the aid of the spiritual chi pool for cultivation? Elder Lin has an extraordinary understanding of saber momentum. However, he doesn't seem to have anything particularly outstanding in physical cultivation and true essence. Therefore, spending contribution points to come to the spiritual chi pool to assist with true essence cultivation seems normal. Many people knew about Lin Fei's past. They knew Lin Fei was a Dao seeker. He had joined the ancient origin sect for only half a year, and he was merely in the early stage of martial state. How much could he improve in half a year? They didn't think much about it. Instead, they assumed that Lin Fei was here to cultivate using the spiritual chi pool. After all, cultivating in the spiritual chi pool gives one twice the result with half the effort, and it's much more efficient. Lin Fei did not pay attention to the discussions of others. He walked straight into the spiritual chi pool. There was more than one spiritual chi pool. There were 9. There is a difference among these 9 spiritual chi pools. There is one located in the best spot. Its spiritual essence is the densest. But regular disciples can't go in, and even ordinary martial saints can't go in. Even if they spend contribution points, they can't go in. Because this spiritual chi pool is for those martial saints who are condensing the chi flower, and it doesn't cost any contribution points. But once one enters the spiritual chi pool, he must try to condense the chi flower. This rule deters most people, and no one would try to exploit loopholes. After all, once one enters the spiritual chi pool, he must condense the chi flower. If he doesn't attempt to condense, he will be severely punished. There was no one in this spiritual chi pool at the moment. After all, in the whole ancient origin sect, there are very few instances of 2 people attempting to condense the chi flower at the same time. Most of the time, this spiritual chi pool is empty. Now was the same. However, when Lin Fei headed straight for that one spiritual chi pool, the elder who was guarding the spiritual chi pool had already blocked Lin Fei's path. The spiritual chi pool, 1,000 contribution points for 1 day's use. The martial saint elder spoke calmly. Do I also need to spend contribution points to use that highest spiritual chi pool? Lin Fei asked. HM. The elder raised an eyebrow. He examined Lin Fei carefully from head to toe. Seemingly, he realized something. You are the Dao Seeker, Lin Fei, I recognize you. You defeated Ao Yanshao, and your understanding of saber momentum is indeed strong. But you've only been in the ancient origin sect for half a year. Even if you've been cultivating true essence all this time, how far could your cultivation have progressed? If you forcefully try to condense the chi flower and fail, it could even damage your foundation, making it impossible for you to condense it in the future. The martial saint elder was also reminding Lin Fei. Going to that spiritual chi pool, one must condense the chi flower. Please open the spiritual chi pool for me, elder. Lin Fei's tone was still calm, but it was filled with unwavering determination. The elder didn't try to persuade him any further. After all, whether or not to condense the chi flower was Lin Fei's own choice. So Lin Fei passed the elder directly. He entered the highest located spiritual chi pool. The disciples around who were originally cultivating hard all opened their eyes one by one, looking at Lin Fei in surprise. That is the spiritual chi pool for breakthroughs. Elder Lin is going there. Is he trying to condense the chi flower? So Elder Lin didn't come to cultivate with the help of the spiritual chi pool, but to try to condense the chi flower. But he just joined the ancient origin sect half a year ago. Can he condense the chi flower? Even if Elder Lin's talent is high, how much true essence can he cultivate in half a year? If he fails to condense the chi flower, it will damage his foundation. Elder Lin is too impatient. Energy flower, chi flower, spirit flower. Among these 3 flowers, the spirit flower is the hardest. But Elder Lin has already transcended in saber momentum. He has a great chance to condense the spirit flower first. When the time comes, wouldn't it be better to slowly condense the essence flower and chi flower with the guarantee of successful condensation? He's been too rash. Many disciples were somewhat puzzled. Lin Fei was trying to condense the chi flower so early. This is very hard to succeed. Did Lin Fei think that condensing the chi flower was easy? Or was Lin Fei too confident? Almost everyone was surprised and puzzled by Lin Fei's choice to condense the chi flower now. They even felt it was a pity. But Lin Fei didn't hesitate at all. His expression was still calm. Step by step, he came to the front of this spiritual chi pool. Lin Fei looked down. Inside the spiritual chi pool, the green spiritual essence filled the whole pool. Moreover, around the spiritual chi pool, there were at least dozens of array formations densely packed, keeping the spiritual essence fixed within the pool. These array formations were set up by the Foundation establishment true persons who were invited. Presumably, the ancient origin sect also paid a heavy price. Only with these dense array formations could they firmly fix that spiritual essence inside the spiritual chi pool. Lin Fei took a deep breath. Then, without hesitation, he jumped directly into the spiritual chi pool. With a plop, Lin Fei had already fallen into the spiritual chi pool. Suddenly, a large amount of spiritual essence surrounded him. They desperately tried to drill into Lin Fei's body. If one cultivates here, the efficiency would increase at least tenfold or even higher. No wonder so many innate martial artists or martial saints were willing to spend 1,000 or even several thousand contribution points. However, Lin Fei did not come to the spiritual chi pool to cultivate. He was preparing to condense the chi flower. Lin Fei closed his eyes. He slowly adjusted his state. He could sense numerous gazes around him were focused on him, but Lin Fei didn't care. He slowly calmed his mind. His thoughts gradually calmed down as well. It's not known how long it had been. Whoosh! Lin Fei opened his eyes. His eyes were as calm as an ancient well. Clearly, he had completely adjusted his mood. Moreover, having soaked in such precious spiritual essence for such a long time, his body was also almost adjusted to its best condition. Let's start. Lin Fei took a deep breath, no longer suppressing the true essence in his body. Boom. The next moment, Lin Fei's true essence exploded from within his body. A terrifying aura emanated from him, instantly enveloping the entire spiritual chi pool. Chapter 234. Limit Martial Saint. Lin Fei sat cross-legged in the spiritual chi pool in a calm manner. A large amount of spiritual essence was frantically trying to drill into Lin Fei's body. Lin Fei's true intention myriad transformation technique was operating. Terrifying saber essence emanated. Its power instantly covered the entire spiritual chi pool. Suddenly, everyone in the spiritual chi pool, whether they were disciples or elders, even the top-tier martial saints, all felt a terrifying pressure. This wasn't the pressure of saber momentum. It was completely different from saber momentum. It was purely the pressure of true essence. Or to put it another way, it was the pressure of Lin Fei's saber essence. Just this pressure alone made many disciples in the spiritual chi pool feel as if they were unable to breathe. This aura has the cultivation technique reached perfection. Such terrifying true essence, there can be no mistake. Elder Lin must have perfected a technique for cultivating true essence. Otherwise, it's impossible to have such a terrifying pressure of true essence. How long has Elder Lin been in the ancient origin sect? It's only about half a year at most. How could he have perfected a cultivation technique? Incredible, it's truly incredible. I originally thought Elder Lin was just talented in saber momentum and natural saber sight. I didn't expect that in the cultivation of true essence, Elder Lin is also a top-tier genius. Could Elder Lin really be able to condense the chi flower? Many disciples were uncertain. Their hearts were filled with shock. They had cultivated for decades, even 100 years. And they might not be able to reach the point of condensing the chi flower. But what about Lin Fei? It was just a mere half a year. The elders of the spiritual chi pool also immediately changed their expressions. All of you leave the spiritual chi pool immediately and go outside. Otherwise, under such great pressure, you won't be able to cultivate. As for the contribution points you've paid, you can continue to cultivate in the spiritual chi pool after Elder Lin finishes condensing the chi flower. Actually, without the elder's words, many disciples also got up and left the spiritual chi pool. Under these circumstances, they simply couldn't cultivate at all. Continuing to stay in the spiritual chi pool was just a waste of time. So, the disciples inside the spiritual chi pool all left the spiritual chi pool one after another and came outside. However, from the outside, they could still see the situation inside the spiritual chi pool. Almost all the disciples did not leave. The elders didn't stop them either. As long as they weren't noisy and didn't affect Lin Fei's condensation of the chi flower. After all, being able to witness a martial sage condensing a chi flower with their own eyes and seeing the whole process would be of some help to them when they try to condense a chi flower in the future. Even, some disciples started to send messages to each other. They notified their friends one after another. Get to the spiritual chi pool quickly. Outer sect Elder Lin Fei is about to condense the chi flower. It's absolutely true, hurry up. Tao Seeker Elder Lin is trying to condense the chi flower half a year after defeating Ao Yunsha. It would be a pity to miss this opportunity. Inside the ancient origin sect, the distance is very close and there are array methods that are interconnected. Therefore, they can communicate with each other. For a time, many disciples came to the spiritual chi pool. Innate martial artists, martial saints, and so on. Even some of the top-tier martial saints also came to the spiritual chi pool upon hearing the news. After all, compared to the ordinary disciples who came to watch the excitement, these top-tier martial saints were the most qualified to condense the chi flower. The number of people outside was increasing. But Lin Fei in the spiritual chi pool was not disturbed at all. He didn't pay attention to the situation around him. His entire attention was on himself. Especially the saber essence within his body. The true intention myriad transformation technique kept operating. Because he had devoured a martial sabe level technique. Therefore, Lin Fei naturally knew how to condense the chi flower. A large amount of saber essence was surging and spouting out of his body. At the same time, spiritual essence drilled into his body, trying to transform into saber essence. However, it was of no use. The saber essence in Lin Fei's body had already reached its limit. The greater use of this spiritual essence was to help Lin Fei compensate for some of the losses caused by condensing the chi flower. The saber essence within Lin Fei's body had completely emanated from his body and gradually started to condense above his head. Let's begin. Lin Fei took a deep breath. He immediately took over control of the true intention myriad transformation technique. According to the true intention myriad transformation technique, he activated the method to condense the chi flower. Boon. Immediately, the vast saber essence around Lin Fei actually started to expand frantically, continuing to expand. Finally, it exploded with a loud bang. With the explosion of the saber essence, terrifying power was shaking. However, at the same time, the countless exploding saber essence above Lin Fei's had fatally condensed into a flower. Chi flower. Lin Fei very smoothly condensed the chi flower. It was as easy as eating and drinking. Too easy. Lin Fei even thought about the possible troubles he might encounter. But he didn't encounter any of them. The phrase, when water flows, a channel is formed, couldn't help but emerge in Lin Fei's mind. Yes, Lin Fei now felt, condensing the chi flower was like water flowing into a channel. In fact, Lin Fei felt that even if he didn't do it in the spiritual chi pool, he could still condense the chi flower. Too easy. But is condensing the chi flower really that easy? Just look at the stunned disciples outside with shocked expressions. Some top-tier martial saints had tried to condense the chi flower. Unfortunately, they failed. It took them many years to slowly recover. Therefore, they knew very well how difficult it was to condense the chi flower. But now they saw Lin Fei actually did it in one go. The whole process was too smooth. There were no twists and turns, even more, there were no earth-shaking moments. Just like nature, everything falls into place. The martial saints who understood the significance of this couldn't help but feel a tremor in their hearts. This is the real meaning of when water flows, a channel is formed. When the true essence reaches a certain level of profoundness, the condensation of chi flower is as natural as water flowing into a channel without any difficulty. I didn't believe it before, but now seeing Elder Lin condensing the chi flower, I believe it. So, it can be so easy to condense a chi flower. Easy. Even if one practices the technique to perfection, it's not necessarily easy to condense a chi flower. It can only be said that the technique Elder Lin has practiced must be sophisticated. Moreover, the level of true essence in Elder Lin's body is unimaginable, far surpassing other top martial saints. Does this mean that our ancient origin sect has given birth to another limit martial saint? And he is an outer sect elder. Worthy of being a Tao seeker, not only is his combat power amazing, but even in terms of cultivation, his talent is not inferior to any true disciple. Elder Lin is now ranked as a martial sovereign seed, and his potential is even greater than other martial sovereign seeds. Many disciples had serious expressions. A hint of excitement flashed in their eyes. When water flows, a channel is formed. Although it was difficult, Lin Fei had proven it. When the true essence reaches a certain level of profoundness, one can truly naturally condense a chi flower. There is no need to rely on luck. Otherwise, if the true essence is not profound enough, forcing oneself to condense a chi flower can only rely on luck. And even if one condenses a chi flower, there is still a difference. Like Lin Fei, with such a profound level of true essence, once a chi flower is condensed, true essence will surge. Even among limit martial saints, the level of true essence might vary greatly. What's more important is that condensing a chi flower is not the end. On the contrary, it's just the beginning. To become a martial sovereign, one must unite the three flowers. If the chi flower is strong enough, obviously, the chance of becoming a martial sovereign can greatly increase. At this moment, the chi flower appeared above Lin Fei's head. At the same time, the true intention myriad transformation technique within Lin Fei's body began to crazily absorb the spiritual essence. A large amount of spiritual essence was absorbed into his body, quickly transforming into saber essence. 1 time, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times. In just a moment, the amount of saber essence in Lin Fei's body surged and increased by more than 10 times in an instant. Such a terrifying increase, no wonder limit martial saints are powerful on a different level. It's a world apart from ordinary martial saints. Splash! Lin Fei stood up directly from the spiritual chi pool. Boom! The chi flower above Lin Fei's head emerged again. Moreover, the shadow of the chi flower immediately reflected in the sky above the spiritual chi pool, forming a huge flower. Grand and impressive, like a huge cloud. All the martial artists under the coverage of the chi flower. Whether they were innate martial artists or martial saints, everyone felt that the true chi, the true essence in their bodies seemed to be under great pressure. This chi flower actually had a similar ability to suppress opponents like martial momentum. It just targeted true essence and true chi. At this moment, no one doubted anymore. Lin Fei had condensed the chi flower. He truly reached the pinnacle of martial saints, becoming a limit martial saint. Chapter 235. Have a reputation far and wide. He did it. Lin Fei retracted his chi flower. The momentum gradually disappeared. This time, although it was a bit different from what he had imagined, as long as he could condense the chi flower, it would be fine. Moreover, this also gave Lin Fei a reference. To condense the energy flower or spirit flower, he still needs to practice the technique to perfection. In that way, the chance of condensing the 3 flowers should be greater. Congratulations to Elder Lin for successfully condensing the chi flower and achieving the status of a limit martial saint. The elder of the spiritual chi pool also hurried forward to congratulate him. In the ancient origin sect, limit martial saints hold a lofty status. Basically, they were all high-ranking figures of the ancient origin sect. If they were true disciples, they were seeds of martial sovereigns. All kinds of resources would be tilted towards them to the greatest extent. Whether they were disciples or elders, once they reached the status of ultimate martial saints, they would become the real core. Their status was second only to the martial sovereign of the sect. Lin Fei nodded. The disciples outside the spiritual chi pool also shouted in unison, "Congratulations to Elder Lin for condensing the chi flower and achieving the status of a limit martial saint." Everyone knew that with Lin Fei achieving the status of limit martial saint, he was set to rise to prominence. His identity and status would undergo qualitative changes. This was completely different from the battle with Ao Yunsha. Lin Fei defeated Ao Yunsha. At most, he was just given attention by the sect. But he was still an outer sect elder. His status and identity did not improve at all. But becoming a limit martial saint, he automatically entered the core high levels of the sect. It's a world apart from before. Lin Fei also nodded at the many disciples, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he took a step and left the spiritual chi pool. As Lin Fei left, the news of Lin Fei condensing a chi flower and advancing to limit martial saint also immediately spread throughout the entire ancient origin sect. This was no small matter. Lin Fei was also a famous Tao seeker. He entered the ancient origin sect half a year ago and he condensed a chi flower. When this news came out, it immediately shocked the entire ancient origin sect. In Ao Yunxia's cave dwelling, Ao Yunxia's injuries were actually healed a long time ago. However, he was still in closed-door cultivation. His injury was not physical but in his soul. He was defeated by Lin Fei in front of everyone. Not only did he fail in his build-up, but also a shadow was cast on his soul. If this issue of the shadow on his soul was not resolved, then Ao Yunxiao should not think about comprehending the momentum of martial arts anymore. It was equivalent to cutting off the path of martial arts. Therefore, for the past half year, Ao Yunxiao had been adjusting his state, gradually adjusting his soul. After half a year of adjustment, he had already made some progress. However, to completely resolve the issue of the shadow on the soul, how easy could it be? It still needed a long time to adjust slowly. However, it finally gave Ao Yunxiao some hope. He was confident. Within 10 years, he would definitely be able to resolve the issue of the shadow on his soul. Even more, Ao Yunxiao had a feeling. Once he resolved the shadow on his soul, he might be able to turn a calamity into a blessing and rise to great heights, even directly comprehend the martial momentum. It's just that the time frame of 10 years might be a bit long. But Ao Yunxiao could wait. He had patience. Step by step at the beginning, he was able to become a true disciple because he had patience. Even if it wasted 10 years, Ao Yunxiao firmly believed that he could get rid of the shadow on his soul. Even condense the spirit flower and achieve the pinnacle of martial arts. At this moment, his maid ran back hastily from outside the cave. Report. Master, the outer sect elder Lin Fei, today in the spiritual chi pool, in front of everyone, has condensed the chi flower and achieved the status of limit martial saint. What? Ao Yunxiao widened his eyes. The aura on his body even became chaotic. The confidence that had just been established disappeared without a trace in a blink of an eye. Even in the depths of Ao Yunxia's heart, there was a deep sense of defeat. How is it possible? Lin Fei has only joined the ancient origin sect for a mere half a year. How could he condense a chi flower? Ao Yunxia murmured to himself in a low voice. His voice was trembling. He didn't believe it. Master, it's true. The news has now spread throughout the entire ancient origin sect. It's absolutely true. Bang. Ao Yunxia's fists landed into the ground. Get out. The maid was in a panic, her face pale. It was Ao Yunxia who had always asked her to collect information about Lin Fei. She didn't dare to linger and immediately fled the cave like she was escaping. Ao Yunxia's face was as pale as paper. The confidence that had just been built up was gone completely. In the dark, he seemed to feel that the little belief that he had been holding onto in his heart had completely collapsed. In the cave of Shen Liangxin, he had been injured by Ao Yunxia. It's been a whole half year. Half a year's time, he kept recuperating. Although he couldn't cultivate true essence, it was a blessing in disguise for Shen Liangxin. Because his understanding of the saber momentum improved by leaps and bounds. Half a year's time, he kept pondering over saber techniques, saber intent. For the evolution of saber momentum, he already had confidence. Report. Master, the outer sect elder Lin Fei, today in the spiritual chi pool, in front of everyone, has condensed the chi flower and achieved the status of a limit martial sate. Now the entire ancient origin sect has been shaken up. When the maid entered the cave, after informing Shen Liangxin of the news. Swish! Shen Liangxin instantly opened his eyes. Limit martial saint. Shen Liangxin murmured to himself in a low voice. He wasn't shocked. It was just a bit unexpected. But even if he felt surprised, upon careful thought, it seemed to be within reason. Shen Liangxin understood Lin Fei too well. Among the entire ancient origin sect, the person who understood Lin Fei the best was Shen Liangxin. Master, you don't seem surprised. News about Elder Lin is now being spread all over the ancient origin sect. There are all kinds of speculations. The maid seemed a bit puzzled. She came to the cave to serve Shen Liangxin, but the number of words she heard from Shen Liangxin was few and far between. She even felt Shen Liangxin could remain silent for years. But such big news, how could Shen Liangxin not be surprised? You don't understand, Shen Liangxin shook his head, speaking in a calm tone. Even if it was a month, not half a year, I wouldn't be surprised if Lin Fei became a limit martial sate. Back in Great Chan, Brother Lin grew all the way and fought unbeaten under the heavens, which was much more shocking than this. If he didn't become a limit martial sate in a year or so, I would be the one surprised. Shen Liangxin shook his head. Lin Fei became a limit martial sate, condensing the chi flower had been within his expectations. Shen Liangxin was not surprised at all. However, even though he wasn't surprised, there was still a slight ripple in his heart. Brother Lin, I came to the ancient origin sect with you. Now that you've become a limit martial sate, I can't fall too far behind you. Today, let's evolve the saber momentum. Shen Liangxin felt a sense of happiness in his heart. He immediately felt that the opportunity had come. After all, Lin Fei becoming a limit martial sate was also a stimulus to Shen Liangxin. He couldn't possibly be truly indifferent. If he were truly indifferent, then his martial arts path would certainly not go far. Boom. The next moment, Shen Liangxin's saber intent erupted. It was vast and mighty, filling the entire cave. Finally, the terrifying saber intent began to evolve. The various saber techniques Shen Liangxin had practiced before all appeared within the saber intent. This is evolution. The evolution of saber momentum. Everything fell into place naturally. At this moment, Shen Liangxin also successfully evolved the saber momentum. Chapter 236. The invitation of the martial sovereign. Lin Fei returned to his cave. He sat cross-legged on the ground. System. With a thought, he summoned a system to view his martial arts. Host, Lin Fei. Martial arts realm, limit martial saint. True intention myriad transformation technique, perfection. Blood essence 9 transformations, 7th transformation, progress 12%. Holy Spirit saber technique, mastery, progress 58%. Flame burning heaven saber, transcendence, progress 65%. Rainbow transformation saber technique, transcendence, progress 10%. Saber momentum, transcendence, progress 0%. Lin Fei's martial arts hadn't changed much. Only the martial arts realm had risen from the late stage of martial saint to the limit martial saint. It might seem like just a change in name, but Lin Fei knew very well. This step was a qualitative metamorphosis. In the entire ancient origin sect, the number of martial saints was actually quite large. If it looked at the entire ancient continent, the number of martial saints would be even greater. But the limit martial saint was different. As the strongest existence below the martial sovereign, their status was very high anywhere. Lin Fei had been in retreat for more than 5 months. Refining essence enhancement pills was part of the true intention myriad transformation technique. Lin Fei couldn't run around. Because once he used the saber essence, it would consume the saber essence. And then it would affect the cultivation of the true intention myriad transformation technique. During the period when the true intention myriad transformation technique was refining essence enhancement pills, it's best to stay put and not move. Therefore, this 5-month retreat could be considered the longest retreat Lin Fei ever had. I wonder how Shen Liangxin is doing. Lin Fei thought about it. So, he got up and went directly to Shen Liangxin's cave. When Lin Fei arrived at Shen Liangxin's cave, he saw that Shen Liangxin was actually practicing true essence, swallowing the spiritual qi. Huh? Brother Shen, have your injuries healed? How did Shen Liangxin recover in just a few months? After all, Ao Yanshao injured Shen Liangxin with such an injury. It would take at least a year to recover. A rare smile appeared at the corner of Shen Liangxin's mouth as he slowly spoke. Brother Lin, you're here. I haven't congratulated you yet on successfully condensing the Qi flower, achieving the status of limit martial saint. However, Lin Fei shook his head and said, it's just the condensation of a Qi flower, it's nothing to mention. There's still the energy flower and spirit flower that hasn't been condensed. Even if all 3 flowers are condensed, it's nothing unless I achieve the status of martial sovereign. If he didn't know Lin Fei and didn't believe that what he said came from his heart, Shen Liangxin might even think Lin Fei was a bit insincere. Limit martial saint. How many martial artists dream of reaching that realm? In the ancient origin sect, there were countless martial saints who failed to condense any of the 3 flowers in their lifetime. And Lin Fei, in just half a year after joining the ancient origin sect, condensed the Qi flower and became a limit martial saint. Such an achievement was already awe-inspiring. But Shen Liangxin knew what Lin Fei said was genuine. He knew that Lin Fei's goal was not the limit martial saint but the martial sovereign. By the way, Brother Shen, you still haven't answered me. How did your injuries heal? Lin Fei continued to ask. Shen Liangxin smiled slightly and said, the sect gave me a healing treasure, which healed my injuries. The sect gave you a healing treasure? Lin Fei frowned slightly, seeming a little puzzled. Ha ha ha, Brother Lin, what do you think of my saber momentum? Shen Liangxin burst into laughter. In the next moment, a unique saber momentum erupted instantly. Boom. Although it was just newly evolved saber momentum and it hadn't even reached mastery yet, it was a genuine saber momentum. In the ancient origin sect, anyone who could evolve martial momentum was considered a genius. Moreover, Shen Liangxin was only about 40 years old. Among the martial saints, around 40 was very young. Such a young age, and he had already evolved saber momentum. Obviously, the ancient origin sect also regarded Shen Liangxin as a top genius to cultivate. Lin Fei immediately understood. It seems that the ancient origin sect also saw Shen Liangxin's potential. Therefore, they directly gave some resources and benefits, just like Lin Fei. However, the ancient origin sect gave Lin Fei contribution points, and what they gave to Shen Liangxin was a healing treasure, letting Shen Liangxin heal as soon as possible and then continue to cultivate. Not bad, Brother Shen, it was only a matter of time before you evolved Saber Momentum. I just thought that it would take a year or two for you to possibly evolve Saber Momentum. I didn't expect that in just a few months you have evolved Saber Momentum. Lin Fei was a bit surprised. He didn't doubt that Shen Liangxin would evolve Saber Momentum. But he didn't expect it to be so fast. Shen Liangxin nodded and said, I have to thank Brother Lin for honing my saber intent with Saber Momentum. We both traveled from Great Chan to seek the Da. I can't lag too far behind Brother Lin. So, the two discussed Saber Momentum again. Of course, Shen Liangxin's Saber Momentum was far inferior to Lin Fei's. Lin Fei also shared his experience of condensing the Qi flower with Shen Liangxin. Shen Liangxin was also determined. He must cultivate his technique to perfection and then try to condense the Qi flower. Lin Fei stayed in Shen Liangxin's cave for a few hours. Then, Lin Fei returned to his own cave. Just after returning to his cave, Lin Fei saw a martial saint. Elder Lin. This martial saint took the initiative to approach Lin Fei. Are you an elder of the Law Enforcement Hall? Lin Fei noticed the attire of the martial saint. He roughly knew that the other party was from the Law Enforcement Hall. However, the Law Enforcement Hall was divided into the Outer Law Enforcement Hall and the Law Enforcement Hall of the entire Ancient Origin sect. Lin Fei himself was an elder of the Outer Law Enforcement Hall. Elder Lin, I'm under the order of the Master of the Ancient Origin sect Law Enforcement Hall. I'm here to deliver a token to you. You are now the Vice Hall Master of the Ancient Origin sect Law Enforcement Hall. Vice Hall Master. Lin Fei knew that the other party was referring to the entire Law Enforcement Hall of the Ancient Origin sect. This was not a leisurely position. It held great power. After all, the Law Enforcement Hall was responsible for enforcing the law. They might be dealing with some true disciples. At that time, it would be up to the Law Enforcement Hall to take action. And the Vice Hall Master was obviously high above, belonging to the high level of the Law Enforcement Hall. The position of Vice Hall Master holds high authority, and I am only interested in cultivation, I'm afraid. Lin Fei was preparing to refuse. If they want him to be an elder, that's no problem. But the Vice Hall Master, that was a position that required action. Even if it had various benefits, he didn't want to waste his cultivation time. However, this martial saint smiled and said, Elder Lin, don't worry, our Law Enforcement Hall's Vice Hall Master actually doesn't need to do much. Only certain major matters need to be reported to you. Moreover, the Vice Hall Master has many benefits. It's much better than being an elder. Besides, this was something the Hall Master personally instructed. The Hall Master personally instructed. Lin Fei knew that the Hall Master of the Law Enforcement Hall is a martial sovereign. In fact, throughout the Ancient Origin sect, the power of the Law Enforcement Hall is the most formidable. Therefore, the Hall Master must be a martial sovereign. As for other martial sovereigns, most of them are Grand Elders or Sect Masters. Every Sect Master of the Ancient Origin sect is a martial sovereign. Vice Hall Master, if you have any questions, you can ask the Hall Master directly. The Hall Master is still in the Law Enforcement Hall, waiting to see Vice Hall Master Lin. Lin Fei looked at the martial saint in front of him. He knew that this martial saint was not only here to deliver the token but also to invite him. After some thought, Lin Fei nodded and said, all right, please lead the way. After all, it was a personal invitation from a martial sovereign. Moreover, Lin Fei was indeed curious. What did a martial sovereign look like? This was an opportunity. So, Lin Fei and this martial sage turned into two streaks of light and flew towards the law enforcement hall. Chapter 237. Wind Sovereign. The law enforcement hall was a place that everyone in the ancient origin sect feared. There was no disciple who wanted to be taken into the law enforcement hall. Because, once that happened, it basically meant that they had caused trouble. Moreover, the trouble would certainly not be small. Otherwise, there would be no need to mobilize the law enforcement hall. This was Lin Fei's first visit to the headquarters of the ancient origin sect's law enforcement hall. This was not the outer law enforcement hall but the one that governed the entire ancient origin sect's inner sect and true disciples. Even the elders of the ancient origin sect were all within the jurisdiction of the law enforcement hall. As long as someone caused trouble, the law enforcement hall would take action. Therefore, the Hall Master of the law enforcement hall held high authority. The power was so great that it was only below the sect master. Therefore, the Hall Master of the law enforcement hall has always been held by a martial sovereign. If not for the martial sovereign, probably no one could uphold the reputation of the entire law enforcement hall. Following the martial sage of the law enforcement hall, Lin Fei arrived at a spacious room. Vice Hall Master Lin, please, the Hall Master is inside. Lin Fei nodded and walked straight in. As soon as he entered the room, Lin Fei saw an old man. The old man had his eyes closed. He was sitting cross-legged on the ground. There was no strong aura around him. However, Lin Fei vaguely felt a kind of oppressive feeling as if the old man in front of him was a terrifying existence. Lin Fei had never felt this way before. So, he was taken aback. He knew that the old man in front of him was extraordinary. It was probably the Hall Master of the law enforcement hall, Wind Sovereign. Wind Sovereign, the Hall Master of the law enforcement hall. It's pretty much well known in the ancient origin sect. Swish. Wind Sovereign opened his eyes. You must be Vice Hall Master Lin, right? Lin Fei pays his respects to Wind Sovereign. Lin Fei respectfully saluted. A martial sovereign equivalent to a golden core true person. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, Wind Sovereign was one of the real core figures in the entire ancient origin sect, even considered a pillar of heaven. No need to be so formal. Vice Hall Master Lin must be very curious now. Why did I summon you and even make you the Vice Hall Master of the law enforcement hall? Lin Fei nodded. He was indeed curious. Very simple, strength. Wind Sovereign smiled and said, you defeated Aoyan Shao, and you are very strong in your own right. Now that you have condensed a chi flower, coupled with your saber momentum, your strength, even among the limit martial saints, can be considered top-notch. Therefore, it's only fitting for you to serve as the Vice Hall Master of the law enforcement hall. Lin Fei's face remained calm. He knew it wasn't that simple. If it was simply because of his strong strength that he was appointed as the Vice Hall Master of the law enforcement hall, there was no need for Wind Sovereign to summon him personally. Not to mention Lin Fei, even a limit martial sage who had condensed chi flow and energy flow might not necessarily be able to meet Wind Sovereign. Martial Sovereign, high above. Even if two flowers have been condensed, as long as one does not become a martial sovereign for one day, there will always be a world of difference with the martial sovereign. Seeing that Lin Fei didn't speak, Wind Sovereign's expression turned serious and he said in a deep voice, of course, there is indeed a reason for making you the Vice Hall Master of the law enforcement hall so quickly. The Vice Hall Masters of my ancient origin sect's law enforcement hall are in charge of the inner hall and the outer hall respectively. The inner hall mainly deals with disciples or elders who have violated the rules of the ancient origin sect, mainly responsible for internal matters of the ancient origin sect. The outer hall mainly deals with external matters. For instance, if the disciples or elders of my ancient origin sect are killed by external forces or individuals, the outer hall of the law enforcement hall will handle it. A big incident has recently occurred in my ancient origin sect. 3 true disciples were killed by some Foundation establishment cultivators. But the culprits escaped to the Illusion Worry City. This Illusion Worry City is a bit special. It has 2 city masters, namely Illusion Heart True Person and Worry-Free Sovereign. One is a Golden Core True Person, the other is a Martial Sovereign. It is located at the junction of the 3 forces, Ancient Origin Sect, Profound Light Cave Heaven, and Red Hades Mansion, but it has become a no-man's land. Anyone can enter the Illusion Worry City, and no fighting is allowed there. Over time, Illusion Worry City has become a carefree place in the eyes of some martial saints and true persons. But this time is different. The culprits killed 3 true disciples of our ancient origin sect, one of whom even had the potential to become a martial sovereign seed. Originally, I planned to personally go down the mountain. But the ancient origin sect, Pro and Light Cave Heaven, and Red Hades Mansion once had some agreements with the 2 city masters of Illusion Worry City. Martial Sovereign and Golden Core True Persons are not allowed to enter Illusion Worry City without permission. So, the matter of capture can only be handled by the Martial Saints. You have grasped the Transcendence Saber Momentum, which is currently the only one in the Law Enforcement Hall. When it comes to arresting people, your Saber Momentum has more advantages than other martial saints who have condensed 2 flowers. Moreover, your strength is not bad. It may not be worse than the martial saints who have condensed 2 flowers. It's most appropriate for you to capture the real culprit. When Sovereign didn't hide anything, he revealed the hidden information. It turns out that Lin Fei was to be sent to capture some troublesome figures. Illusion Worry City. No man's land, and there were even Golden Core True Persons and Martial Sovereigns. It doesn't sound like an easy task. However, Lin Fei was originally an elder of the Outer Law Enforcement Hall. The Law Enforcement Hall has the right to order Lin Fei to perform some tasks. This is also a duty of Lin Fei as an elder of the Ancient Origin Sect. After all, he has gained cultivation techniques from the Ancient Origin Sect. He got resources. Since he got the benefits, then of course he has to pay. When Sovereign, Illusion Worry City has Golden Core True Persons and Martial Sovereigns. And it's explicitly forbidden to take action in Illusion Worry City. If I go to Illusion Worry City to arrest or even kill people, wouldn't that break the rules of Illusion Worry City? If the Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign take action. Lin Fei didn't continue his words. But when Sovereign naturally understood Lin Fei's meaning. If the Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign took action, then Lin Fei would be in danger. Even if he's strong, how could he possibly contend with a Golden Core True Person or a Martial Sovereign? When Sovereign smiled faintly and said, "You don't need to worry about this. You represent my Ancient Origin Sect." The Ancient Origin Sect, Profound Light Cave Heaven, and Red Hades Mansion had an agreement with Illusion Worry City. The 2 city masters of Illusion Worry City are not allowed to take action against people from our 3 sects. Similarly, our 3 sects Golden Core True Persons or Martial Sovereigns are not allowed to enter Illusion Worry City and take action. So, when you take action in Illusion Worry City, you don't need to worry about Golden Core True Persons or Martial Sovereigns. However, the strong ones under the command of the 2 city masters and those who killed the true disciples of the Ancient Origin Sect may take action against you. And the Law Enforcement Hall will also dispatch some elders to accompany you to Illusion Worry City. Lin Fei understood. The Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign would not take action. After all, if they take action, it would be equivalent to tearing up the agreement. It's not a difficult task for the Ancient Origin Sect to raise Illusion Worry City to the ground with all its strength. But the strong ones below the Martial Sovereigns could take action. So, this trip of Lin Fei actually faced a great challenge. When Sovereign stopped talking, he waited quietly. Lin Fei also closed his eyes. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. He was quietly considering his options. Chapter 238. Accept the task. When sovereign, since the sect has assigned me to carry out this task, I naturally comply. However, I still feel unsuited to the position of Vice Hall Master. Just a leisurely elder will suffice. If the law enforcement hall needs me, I am at its disposal at any time. Lin Fei opened his eyes and said slowly. His words meant that he had agreed. However, he rejected the position of Vice Hall Master. Even if it's more leisurely, as a Vice Hall Master in charge of external affairs, how could it possibly be truly leisurely? Even if the position of Vice Hall Master has great benefits, Lin Fei didn't want to be entangled in mundane affairs, which would affect his cultivation. His goal is to reach the pinnacle of martial arts. How could he be distracted by dealing with mundane affairs? When Sovereign laughed, he nodded slightly and said, "All right, since you don't want to be the Vice Hall Master, then be an elder. However, this time you will definitely represent the ancient origin sect, and even more so, the law enforcement hall. A common elder is also not suitable. With your strength, you should be the first elder of the law enforcement hall. This position happens to be vacant." When Sovereign gave Lin Fei another arrangement. This first elder is suitable. After all, first elder is just an honorary title. In terms of specific duties, he is still an elder. And the elders of the law enforcement hall most of the time are quite leisurely. Unless something big happens in the ancient origin sect, then the elder will be dispatched. As for Lin Fei, this first elder, unless there's an extremely big event, he probably won't be disturbed. "Thank you, Wind Sovereign." Lin Fei gave a slight bow. "All right, Elder Lin, you can go back to your cave dwelling first. Once the law enforcement hall arranges the candidates, you can set off for Illusion Worry City together. This is equivalent to going on a mission. The sect also offers a large number of contribution points as rewards." Lin Fei nodded. "There are rewards for going on missions. For this kind of task where the sect needs a martial say to exert great effort, the reward of contribution points is extremely generous." Therefore, Lin Fei was not worried about the rewards at all. With his current strength and potential, the ancient origin sect would only look for more excuses to give him contribution points. Lin Fei returned to his cave dwelling. Although he believed that when Sovereign would not deceive him, he had to lead a team to a strange place. Even places where Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign are stationed. Lin Fei, of course, had to be more careful. So, he found some information about Illusion Worry City. He learned about the beginning and end of Illusion Worry City. The establishment of Illusion Worry City actually carries some legendary color. Illusion Heart True Person and Worry-Free Sovereign are actually independent cultivators. Lin Fei found it somewhat incredible to see the introduction to the information. After all, it's not easy for independent cultivators to become martial saints or foundation establishment true persons. Not to mention achieving the level of Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign. But it is indeed the case. Illusion Heart True Person and Worry-Free Sovereign rose step by step and were chased to the place where Illusion Worry City is now. There, they were protected by a group of martial artists and foundation establishment true persons who were also independent cultivators. Later, they grew step by step and actually achieved Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign. This is indeed legendary. Of course, Lin Fei also knew. The past experiences of these two people are not simple. There must be some adventures. Because, according to the information, Illusion Heart True Person and Worry-Free Sovereign were not ordinary Golden Core True Person and Martial Sovereign. They could be considered among the top existence in Martial Sovereigns and Golden Core True Persons. Therefore, the three major forces of the ancient origin sect, Profound Light Cave Heaven and Red Hades Mansion, finally acknowledged the existence of Illusion Worry City. Otherwise, with the domineering style of these three forces, where would there be any no man's land? Only with strength can the existence of Illusion Worry City be guaranteed. After the establishment of Illusion Worry City, because of its relative safety and the freedom of trading, and even many treasures that could not see the light of day could be traded through Illusion Worry City, gradually it developed. Nowadays, even some disciples of the three major forces would go to Illusion Worry City to exchange for some things they couldn't get in their sects. It had truly become a big scene. Among them, Illusion Worry City is known for its safety. No matter how malicious, once in Illusion Worry City, it's safe. Because, within Illusion Worry City, fighting is not allowed. Once a fight happens, the law enforcement team of Illusion Worry City will strictly punish it. Lin Fei finally understood why even when Sovereign was troubled. Even specifically summoned Lin Fei. Turns out, going to Illusion Worry City to catch someone is not easy at all. Once a fight happens, it will inevitably conflict with Illusion Worry City. Either immediately kill the real culprits who killed the ancient Origin sect disciples. Then leave Illusion Worry City immediately. Once out of Illusion Worry City, the forces of it would not take action or confront the forces. Over the years, Illusion Heart True Person and Worry-Free Sovereign had also recruited a lot of limit martial saints and top foundation establishment cultivators. Therefore, their power is very strong. A slight carelessness. Lin Fei and others might even be in danger. If they break the rules of Illusion Worry City and get killed inside, perhaps the ancient Origin sect wouldn't make a fuss about it. Therefore, this trick carries certain dangers. However, it's not really dangerous for limit martial saints. To kill a limit martial saint is too difficult. Moreover, it's not just Lin Fei going this time. There are also some elders at the Law Enforcement Hall. Among them, there are limit martial saints. Although it's dangerous, I now have Saber Momentum, and with the Chi Flower condensed, my Saber essence is greatly increased. Even if I'm not a match, I shouldn't be in danger. Lin Fei muttered to himself. How strong his strength is now, even Lin Fei himself was not clear. After all, Lin Fei's strength cannot be quantified. His current strength was made up of Saber Momentum, Saber Essence, and Saber Method. Only by really giving a full fight, perhaps, can Lin Fei's real combat power be confirmed. Lin Fei waited for 3 days. Finally, he received news from the Law Enforcement Hall. So, Lin Fei went directly to the Law Enforcement Hall. This time, he didn't see Wen Sovereign but a total of 13 martial saints. Almost all were elders of the Law Enforcement Hall. Among them, there were 2 limit martial saints who had condensed energy flower in their bodies and 1 who had condensed chi flower. Apart from them, there were 10 powerful martial saints in total. Such a lineup was actually very strong. It showed that the Wen Sovereign of the Law Enforcement Hall was not just talking. They were really serious. Those who killed the true disciples of the Ancient Origin sect, the Ancient Origin sect must kill them even if it had to chase them to the ends of the earth. This is the style of a big sect. Otherwise, a sect that can't protect its true disciples, where would there be any cohesion? Respect to the first elder. These martial saint elders apparently already knew Lin Fei's identity. Upon seeing Lin Fei, they immediately paid their respects. However, Lin Fei could vaguely feel. The 3 limit martial saints, their gazes seemed a bit strange. Lin Fei's eyes grew cold. His gaze swept over these martial saint elders. He said coldly, I want to ask a question first. Does anyone feel that I, as the first elder, am not qualified? I give you a chance. One move, if I can't beat you, I will voluntarily resign to Wen Sovereign. The opportunity is given to you. If you want to try, you can step forward. After speaking, Lin Fei just stood there with his hands behind his back, quietly standing in front of the 13 martial saint elders. The atmosphere in the whole Law Enforcement Hall immediately became tense. Chapter 239. Just do it. In the law enforcement hall, 13 martial saints were all motionless now. Looking at Lin Fei, they looked a bit complicated. Strong. Obviously, they didn't expect Lin Fei, the first elder, to be so dominant. If they disagreed, they had to take action. Those who might be dissatisfied with Lin Fei were probably only the 3 limit martial saints. After all, their strength was comparable to Lin Fei's. However, they also knew very well Lin Fei had saber momentum, and it was transcendence. Coupled with Lin Fei's chi flower, it was not inferior to them either. If they really wanted to do it, the 3 limit martial saints, none of them were confident that they could beat Lin Fei. If there was the strength to surpass Lin Fei, when Sovereign wouldn't have asked for Lin Fei immediately. Seeing no one speaking, Lin Fei nodded and said coldly, "Since no one is making a move, they are acknowledging me. Once we leave the ancient origin sect, my orders, you can't have any doubts. Otherwise, my saber will not just be slashing at the enemy. If there are any doubts, we will talk about it when we return to the ancient origin sect." Said off. Lin Fei immediately turned around and left the ancient origin sect. The 13 martial saints looked at each other. However, they still followed immediately. Even if Lin Fei was a bit dominant, they were all martial saints of the law enforcement hall. Naturally, they cannot violate the orders of the law enforcement hall. Moreover, they all knew this time was to go to Illusion Worry City. They had actually been to that place. Even if they hadn't been, they all heard about it. The Illusion Worry City was not simple. If it was not dominant enough, they were afraid the task really couldn't be completed. Therefore, the more dominant Lin Fei was, the more reassuring it was for everyone. Illusion Worry City is busy and unusually prosperous. However, the people who came here would hide their identity. No one wants to reveal their identity. Even if Illusion Worry City is safe, once one leaves here, it's not necessarily safe. Therefore, everyone who enters Illusion Worry City, whether it's a martial artist or a chi cultivator, uses aliases. At this moment, in the distant void, dozens of streaming lights flow in. And although there was no revealing of momentum, there was terrifying pressure. Obviously, they were all martial saints. After all, those who can walk in the air at least are all martial saints. Swoosh! More than a dozen martial saints suddenly landed outside Illusion Worry City. It attracted the attention of many people. Why are there so many martial saints? And they all look very powerful, definitely not ordinary martial saints. Looking at their clothes, they seemed to be martial saints of the ancient origin sect. They didn't want to hide their identities at all. Ancient origin sect martial saints, more than a dozen, came all at once. What are they going to do? Are there any of our people in Illusion Worry City? Lin Fei asked. Of course. We also have secret informants in Illusion Worry City. This secret informant, I'm afraid it's not a secret to the 2 city lords of Illusion Worry City. Not only do we have them, Profound Light Cave Heaven and Red Hades Mansion also have informants. Lin Fei nodded and said, then let's go ask the informant about the specific situation in Illusion Worry City first. So, Lin Fei and his group directly came to a courtyard. The courtyard gate opened. 2 innate martial artists came out from inside. Seeing Lin Fei and the others, they showed joy on their faces. They immediately saluted and said, "Greetings all the law enforcement hall elders." Lin Fei and others entered the courtyard. Are there only the 2 of you? Have you found out who is the real killer of our ancient origin sect disciples? Lin Fei asked directly. Since when Sovereign asked him to come to Illusion Worry City, there must be clear clues. Otherwise, why would they make such a big movement and put up such a big formation? Reporting to First Elder, there are indeed specific clues. The 2 innate martial artists said all the information they had investigated in Illusion Worry City. It turns out that the killer who killed the 3 ancient origin sect's true disciples had indeed been found. They were 3 Foundation establishment cultivators, and they were not obscure in their fame. They were called Spiritual Rhythm 3 Immortals. Spiritual Rhythm 3 Immortals, their names seem to be full of immortal charm, but they are undoubtedly demonic heads in the immortal Tao. They are all top Foundation establishment true persons. Facing the threat of heavenly tribulation plus the arrival of the end, they were almost unscrupulous and extreme in their actions. They killed 3 ancient origin sect true disciples just because the 3 ancient origin sect true disciples discovered a cave house left by a golden core true person. As a result, they were killed by the Spiritual Rhythm 3 Immortals. Later, they were afraid that the incident would be revealed and the ancient origin sect would not let them go. They immediately fled back to Illusion Worry City, and they have never left. They plan to even cross the tribulation in Illusion Worry City. First Elder, there is no sign that the Spiritual Rhythm 3 Immortals are leaving Illusion Worry City. Even, they may stay in Illusion Worry City until the end comes, and then they will make a desperate move to cross the tribulation. We probably can't force them to leave Illusion Worry City by any means. The martial saints of the law enforcement hall all frowned. They seem to be at a loss. We are here to arrest the Spiritual Rhythm 3 Immortals. Since we've found them, then just do it. If they resist, kill them directly. Lin Fei stood up, his eyes cold and his tone calm.